After popular demand yesterday, a lot of people wanted to know what's my build like and what I use and etc. like certain situation and things of that nature. For starters, you want to use tab lunar slash. This is basically because it gives you the configuration effect, which lasts 3 seconds, which helps you do 7 R&Bs. You want days tab because this comes in handy for like Yeti when you need a double CC and you don't have you use your stun on accident or whatever. You want to use this. So what I do personally is that I purposely get knocked down so I can daze, or even the first boss in tune. Like some if you iframe incorrectly, or you just happen to get hit and he dazes you, you can just wait a little bit, tab, and then immediately use sword charge and do double daze them like that. Another thing, BMs have multiple CCs. As we go through, I'll point out every CC that we have. Stomp, you don't use this. Violent Blade over Flash Step. I use Violent Blade because I can block and stay in draw stance and do 3 R&Bs. And that's 60k damage, considering your R&Bs do 20k. That's 60k damage over the Flash Step, which does not add up to 60k. I mean, it would be good if you want to use Flash Step for mobility, but that's about it. After that, Flash Step is just not as worth as it used to be. Take flight, you don't need take flight. Your restraint skill. The only time you should do a restraint skill is if your tab is on cooldown. If your tab is up, it's better to use your tab and do the 7 R&Bs instead of crackling blade. If you can, how you say, crackling blade does more damage if you have tab down. If you have tab up, use crackling blade instead. But if you're starting off the fight and let's say your Blademaster goes to the boss and picks it up immediately, use crackling blade, save your tab, and then once the boss comes down and you're out of the restraint, that's when you go into your burst and you start doing that. I'll cover that in a second. What your burst is. Then again, I did do a video yesterday on the burst, so you can check that out. Put it on the screen. Configuration flash. This skill is interesting. You can get it with a crit breeze, your LMB, or pierce. I'll get to this when I get to those skills over there in a second. Block, you need block. One of the most vital skills for BMs is HM block. You need a skill because it legit saves lives. Saves lives. The way HM block works, you see how it has like a 5 second cooldown and a GCD. This global cooldown is so that you can't spam it immediately, especially if L grade. So you can't just spam it over and over if your L grade resets. So you have to wait like 25 seconds that it is to use it. But the cool thing about Wind Protector is that it's a 5 second iframe, right? But it could be 50 seconds. Like if you get hit at 1, and then you hit again at 1, and then hit again at 1, that's like 15 seconds, give or take, and you're invincible for all that time. Instead of how you say, is it iframe for 15 seconds instead of not being an iframe? Because they can also, like, the bad downside to it could be if I use it and I get hit 3 times back to back to back, that's it. My iframes are done and I'm invulnerable. So it's a skill that you have to be careful about and not just spam it out like randomly and look pretty because it's cool. What is skill? What's the other skill? Rush. Rush is another skill. This is another skill that we can use for CC. Stun. As BMs, remember, we can do every single CC. CC stands for crowd control, for those who are wondering. We could do double daze, double knockdown, double stun, and double knockback. And did I miss anything? Double knockdown. I don't know if I said that, but we can do all the other CCs. Oh, I did miss one. If you don't want to be that guy, you could double knockback with second wind in middle tree, but please don't do that. I'd rather have the daze spec. If you have enough points for it, spec for the daze. It doesn't hurt. But yeah. Here you can double stun. You just spec stage 1, tier 2, and there's your stun. Pretty easy, pretty effective. But what I do is I spec for rush. I spec rush on the right tree, not for the aggro, but for the focus. That 3 focus right there, that 3 to 5 focus, it makes the difference. It helps you stay in draw stance that much longer. Well, it helps you build focus to go into draw stance to stay in draw stance longer. Does that make sense? So it's good to have. You don't need it. You can stick with stage 2, tier 2. But me personally, I have a rocket down all the way. For this skill, you don't need the focus or the threat on it. I mean, excuse me. You don't need the threat on the skill, but the focus is great to have. And it's also good, like the reason I spec it down stage 1, tier 3, the threat focus is for like instance, let's say I have my stun spec, I have to apply aggro one way, right? I mean, yeah, I can hold people's damage with just, I can hold aggro with just pure DPS, but it's good just to have, you know. You never know, like, situation comes about, and let's say your DPS is low, and people can take your aggro for whatever reason. That shouldn't be a thing, but if it happens, you know, it's there. Like, it's, I guess it's like the more secure. And honestly, it's just good to have. Like, I like using these skills to reapproach the boss. I use it often to reapproach. Like, when you have to, like, let's say Yeti's walking back, you could use that skill to approach. Make sense? So there's that. 5-point strike. 5-point strike is really good. You can spec for days if you want to. You spec right here for days, and it doesn't launch the enemy into air. You don't need to launch into air, but you know, that's your thing. It can hit multiple enemies. So if you have a bunch of ads, you can hit a bunch of ads and air combo them. If that's your flow, but there's the days. But I spec down this tree because it's a 1 second iframe. The most of the time when I use 5-point strike is just to iframe a skill. I don't use 5-point strike outside of that, or unless I really need focus. Like if I'm doing my filler rotation, that's when I would use 5-point strike. That's like pretty much it. Ankle biter. Ankle biter is pretty cool. The reason I use ankle biter is just to double knockdown. I use ankle biter and boot to knock down. You can use Sundering Sword, but Sundering Sword is just, I guess if you're doing lightning build, it's good because it hits like 5 times, and you know, you could get back 15 focus, I guess, but you don't really need it, and it's not worth. If you're doing lightning build, that's for you. But if you're not, fire build is where to go. You have CCs available. Spec for ankle biter because you're gonna need it. A lot of BMs don't CC. You have to, like, you can't rely on other people. It's good to just trust yourself and know that you can do it. And I guess I see a lot of BMs though, they do use Sundering Sword because they spec their 2 stun, and they want the aggro from here. So the way they'll start out the fight, they would run and drop Sundering Sword and then go into their burst so that they have the aggro. But I'd rather just have ankle biter because I start off aggro with 2. Unless I really need the stun, then I'll switch it up and then, you know, go on with that. Sundering, not Sundering, what's good this? Searing Slash. A lot of people say Searing Slash or Lightning Jaw. Sorry to break it to you, but Searing Slash does a hell of a lot more damage. This is why. The initial hit of Searing Slash does more than Lightning Jaws, but the ticks after Searing Slash is less than Lightning Jaws. And basically what I'm saying is the initial hit from Searing Slash outweighs the additional damage the Lightning Jaw gives you, causing it to do much more damage. Make sense? Again, if you have any questions, just let me know in the comment section and I'll get to you. Breeze. You don't really need points into Breeze. The main reason why I have points into Breeze is, for instance, like, let's say somebody died behind the boss for whatever reason, right? And you don't want to queue behind the boss because if you queue, the boss is going to swipe or something and you're going to end up killing that guy. Like if he's G-resing. So the reason why I keep this skill stage 1 tier 5. By the way, you need this skill you need a Hung Moon Pellet for, and for Searing Slash, you need the book from Bloodshed Harbor. But going back to this, so you would do Breeze, and then they'll proc your Conflagration Flash, and then you go into draw stance by pressing F, and you keep the ball stationary without having to Q while continuing DPS. You lose a little bit of DPS by doing Conflagration Flash, but you don't lose a whole lot. So the option is there so that you don't kill your party members. But again, you can also Wind Protector, considering that you're not going to need it later on in the fight for the mech. Like within 45 seconds, if you're sure you're not going to need it, Wind Protector. Flicker. Flicker is obvious. You spec Flicker because this is part of your, not burst, but it helps you Dragon Tongue more. As you can see, it reduces the cooldown Dragon Tongue by 2 seconds, so you need to spec this. You need to, because you could do Flicker, 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 Dragon Tongue is off CD, Flicker, 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 rinse and repeat. And then, because every time you do Dragon Tongue, it reduces the cooldown on tab by a second. So there's that. Cyclone is meant. I mean, you don't need it. The way you proc Cyclone is by blocking something and then you use Cyclone. Cyclone is an iframe that gives you back focus. Again, you don't need the focus nor the threat that the skill provides. But the reason why I have it is for just an extra iframe for sense of security. If it ever comes down to it and I need it, because Cyclone also procs with 5-point strike. So let's say I need to dodge the AoE on the first boss, like I can, as a BM, you can block the first 3 with Wind Protector. And let's say you don't have like another party iframe, so what you do is you save your 5-point strike for that situation. So you do, as the wives are spinning back towards you 5-point strike, and then after the first, I believe the first 4 hits of 5-point strike is an iframe. So after the fourth hit or the third hit to be extra safe, you would just proc Cyclone right after because you're invincible and you don't get hit not one time. So that's very useful. Um, don't use Pierce. Pierce is trash. For the love of all holy, don't use Pierce. Pierce is absolute doo-doo. You lose DPS. It costs you 2 focus. It only does like 4k damage. It's bad. Like by the time you use Pierce, you can do a million other things that do. You probably can LMB into Configuration Flash and do more damage than Pierce because now your tab is off cooldown, or you can R&B. It just doesn't make sense to use Pierce. Like Pierce does no damage and it takes too much focus for no reason. It's not even worse as a filler skill. It's just bad. It's just don't use Pierce. Like if all comes worse, like a worst case scenario, and you're like struggling, yo, just AFK. Like LMBing for focus at that point would be much better. And I don't know if I mentioned it already, but you need a Hung Moon pellet to use these two, to use tier 5. But yeah, there's that. What am I missing here? QE on your iframes. SS. You want to spec 1 point is SS because it's another way for us to get into draw stance. HMZ. HMZ is a costly skill. You need 3 awfuls to get these. You can get these by PvPing, or you can get them with raw gold, or there's various ways for you to get them. Once you get the skill, it's amazing, especially if you have the tribute token, because it helps you. It's an extra iframe as well because it makes you invincible for 1.5 seconds after it lands, and that just it's amazing because like the way I start off my burst, I start off with HMZ, and it just keeps me invincible. And that's a really skill to good have. This skill, I never use it. This is like the only time I use this skill is that if I have to get out of Flock of Blades for whatever reason. Like, let's say you go into burst, but then you need a double daze real quick. Like, all right, let's say you go into Flock, right? Let's say you go into Phoenix Wing, and you need to daze because somebody in your party needs assistance. So you would you use your C, and then you would come out with Z immediately and then shoulder charge. That's like a situation where you can do it. But again, I don't really use it like that. It's just not my type of thing. But to each his own. Boot is a very cool casual skill. You can either spec it for knockdown, spec it for stun. And, there's that. Like I said, as a BM, you have every single CC. You have knockdown, you got boot, you got knockdown, you got stun, you got knockback, daze. You have all of them. So no BM should ever give you the excuse that I don't have CC. Every BM has CC. Wording Spirit. This skill is amazing. People don't use it, but it's amazing. Especially for the first boss in Tomb. It's amazing. You can just block all projectiles, and it blocks projectiles around your enemy as well. You can look at it as a FM Veil, but it's strictly as a 1 minute cooldown. 1 minute cooldown in the sense of you're gonna use it when Flock of Blades is up. So there's a 1 minute cooldown. You can use it in basic stance. So there's that. Make sure you use that skill. Bladestorm, please. Every BM spec this skill. You need this skill to continue your burst. You need it. It gives you 4 seconds of configuration effect, and you can get off of 9 R&Bs with this skill. Please, every BM, please spec this skill. And you spec this side if you want to use lightning build. But for fire build, you spec tier 2 stage 1. Okay. A lot of people argue between lightning rod, and lightning retribution. The truth is, lightning retribution is much better for me, in my opinion. The reason why it's better, like let's say you have a group of ads hitting you. Yeah, you can hold block, but you gotta remember like ads are hitting you from the side, etc., etc. So you would use lightning retribution to daze the ads, and then your party members can just finish them all off. Like the first boss before the first boss, the mini boss at the bottom, you can use that, daze all the ads, and then your team can just kill them all. And again, lightning rod, it takes 2 focus. You don't need the focus because you're getting back a bunch of focus from Phoenix Wing, but it's just not worth because it does like no damage. Like check this out. It hits 3.2, 3.1, 1.5, 3.2, 3.2. Like it does no damage. It hits 1, 2, 3. It hits 5 times, and it's just not worth. It hits 5 times. It's not worth, and it's just like it does. let's say that 1.5 crit. So that's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. You did 15k damage over 8 seconds. Think about that for a second. You did 15k damage over 8 seconds. So instead of just pressing VC, like to do lightning rod, you could just V series slash and just go straight into your DPS mode instead of just doing all this other, unnecessary skills. Warning Scourge is the focus skill used for lightning build, and there's that. A lot of people argue Blade Call or Phoenix Swing. The truth is, Phoenix Swing does more damage because of the additional damage that it gives to Dragon Tongue. So basically, the more Dragon Tongues that you do, the more Phoenix Swing ends up doing. Because Blade Call is nice, like it will equal the damage. It will equal the damage if you're like doing like 15 R&Bs, it equals the damage. But if you're doing 23 Dragon Tongues, Phoenix Swing just like demolishes Blade Call. So it just makes Phoenix Swing that much better. Like, imagine, like it's just like saying, if I'm doing 23 R&Bs, right? You would add 600 damage to each of those R&Bs. So now I'm doing, let's say my R&B does 20k. So now you're doing 20.6k in R&B. So you multiply that by 23. That's a lot more than Blade Call. Does that make sense? So that's the reason why I use Phoenix Swing over Blade Call. And again, if you really want to be that guy, you can spec Flock of Blades and the middle tree of second wind for knockback. But please don't be that guy. Don't be trash. And that's basically the entire build. I covered all the CCs. The iframes. Another thing for iframes that a lot of BMs don't do that I see happen way too often is that every time you're in draw stance, you can E. Every single time you're in draw stance, you can E. So there's Q, E, 4, E, tab, E, HMZ if it really comes down to it, E. And there you have it. And then you also have, like, you can use this for unlimited iframes, like I said earlier. So you can do F, E, LMB, This is considering you have high crit chance, but something to play around with if you really want to. That gives you unlimited iframes. For people who have HMZ, if you do it fast enough, you can go into Flock of Blades immediately. The stance, you can go into Phoenix Swing immediately. What you want to do is you want to press Z, and the very same second you press Z, you want to press V. I'm going to show you what it is, but while that cooldown comes up, I'm going to show you the filler rotation. The filler rotation for BMs is pretty simple. So let's say you're in draw stance, so you would just do flicker, and you just keep this up. 2. This is what your filler rotation will look like. Let's say you're down in focus, you use 5-point strike for whatever reason, and then you just keep going. 2, I'm just doing this like whatever. And that's how you just keep your failure up, and it's pretty simple. And then again, for the burst part, if you want to see the burst, I did a video yesterday. You can just go check that out. I'll put it on the screen again if I have to, but there it is. And then the burst, or the whole rotation after, like when you initiate the fight, this is what I do. Is your opener and the way you initiate the fight as well. So you would do 2 ZV4 tab LMB. Right, you LMB consecutively, and then you do X, and then you do X consecutively, and then once you're done with X, you do tab, and then you do R&B consecutively, and then you just continue DPSing. And then you see how Violent Blade comes up. Violent Blade comes up when you LMB or when you R&B. So you can just keep that up. So there's that. A super good technique that you can do that a lot of BMs don't do as well is SS. Turn your camera and SS. It keeps you right on the boss. Instead of being all the way back here, you can SS by going towards the enemy. So for instance, you can let it come off cooldown. You would do this. So you would turn your camera, like it just happens like pretty fast. Like when you're in a fight, it'll happen pretty fast. So you just go and continue DPSing. So there's that. If you guys have any questions in the comment, just leave a comment in the description. Leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'll get back to it as soon as possible. But that's the build. I try to not make it too complicated. I try to make it as quick as possible, which is why I'm talking so fast. I don't want to make it too long because there's like a lot more, I guess. But that's like the most simple way I can put it. So again, if you have any questions, let me know and I answer it as soon as possible. And yeah, thanks for watching. Later.